welcome back to my channel. So last week I announced that I am writing a book that's going to be coming out next year, and one of the issues that I was having as I went back to finish the first book of my fantasy series was world building. It's not that I didn't know how to world build, it's not that I didn't have a lot there, it's that I didn't know when to stop or how to check whether it was enough. Sometimes I would go on Pinterest or see other things online that would say, oh, you can't say that you have done any world building if you don't know the sense of humor or how they take out the trash, all these tiny little details, and it was getting really overwhelming because obviously there's a lot that goes into creating a new culture and a new map and everything like that. So I went to that conference, the writing conference that I vlogged about a few months ago, and one of my favorite sessions was about fantasy world building, looking at culture through the eyes of an anthropologist. And so I want to share with you the 8 elements of culture that I learned about in this class, and it really gave me some clarity about where I was in terms of my own world building. So first of all, I want to give a ton of credit, pretty much all the credit, to Darby Karchut, who is the author of quite a few books. She wrote Del Toro Moon most recently. I don't think that there's any that's come out since that one. But anyway, she's the one who headed up this session. I'm basically stealing her notes, and yes, I did check with her to see that it was okay that I share this information with you because I found it so helpful. So thank you, Darby Karchut, for all that you contributed to my understanding of culture and world building. So let's get to it. Here are the 8 elements of culture that you need to have. If you can check off significant elements within these 8 categories, then your world building is well on its way and you can proceed with your project with confidence. Number 1, language. Number 2, social groups. Number 3, religion. Number 4, arts and crafts. Number 5, history. Number 6, government. Number 7, economy. And number 8, daily life. So let me give you some examples of each of these really quickly so you have a better idea of what comprises all of these. Once again, we're having a day with lots of weird cloud cover or something, so if my face seems to be glowing like some strange little green man, I apologize for that. Just overlook it and listen to the sultry sounds of my voice as I give you all this good information. The first element that you need to consider as you're building your world is religion. So religion can be formal, it can be informal. Basically, religion will help your culture answer the big questions of life. What is the meaning of life? Is there a God? All of that sort of thing. So a very famous example of religion used in a fantasy context is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. There it is. It's the one that came with the movie that came out over 10 years ago now. But anyway, so in this book there is very clearly not only one but several different religions that show themselves. The most prominent, of course, is a belief in Aslan as the one that can bring back the spring and everything good and defeat evil and all that good stuff. So religion is number 1. The second element is language. I love that you put this on the list because it makes so much sense. Language is such a unifying force of culture, to use her words, and how people speak or even what they don't say can contribute so much to an understanding of the culture. So things to consider are not only things like dialect, although you can feel free to add that if you're comfortable with dialect, but also just sayings. Are there some unusual sayings based on their history, even cuss words and things like that. So one work that I think does this really well, decided to go off the beaten path. Oh my goodness, this light is so awful. Decided to go off the beaten path here and choose one of the Redwall books. I loved these when I was a kid, really, and I haven't read them that much since, but I remember the dialect that went with the different races of animals, the different types of animals, and how you could tell before the character was even described what sort of animal you're dealing with, whether he was good or bad. And so I just thought it was charming how they all spoke with these different accents. I remember the rabbits or the hares had a really thick, I think it was English, really an English accent. The moles had these weird verbal tics that kind of made me laugh. So this is the unlikely choice for an example of how to incorporate really distinct language that lets us know what the culture is about. So there we go. Number 3. Let me grab my notes. I literally have my notes here from the conference. So once again, Darby, you are the best. So the third element is history. So this is real history in addition to myths and things like that. If you think about England, you know, real life England, for instance, they have their actual history, but they also have this body of myths that's come out of historical or quasi-historical events, like the whole saga of King Arthur and the different offshoots of that. So history is massively important. I could have used this example for all of these elements, but I feel like that would get a little repetitive. But if you know anything about me, you know that I love Lord of the Rings so much. I don't know if you can tell from my room. I guess this angle doesn't give you too much of a clue into it, but it's true. I love Lord of the Rings like you would not believe. Lord of the Rings is quite a long book, which is the only thing that prevents people from picking it up, I believe, because it's truly amazing and everybody should read it. Tolkien's only complaint about Lord of the Rings was that it was too short, which is funny when you look at the book that was never meant to be separated into 3, and it's over 1,000 pages long. What did he mean? He meant that there was so much more that he could have put into this. He has so much history behind it that it felt like this was just a drop in the bucket, a side story almost, even though to me this is the best. So history is very important. That was something that I came into my story with, some weight of history, so that was nice. But make sure that you have an idea of where your cultures come from, maybe how they were founded, just some early stories that are important to the culture. Okay, the fourth element is daily life that I'm going to talk about, and that is basically just everything day to day. So what food do they eat? What do they wear? What kind of jobs do they have? Just some basics about what daily life would look like. If you went through the day of a typical person from that culture, what would it entail? So that includes housing and things like that. So again, I'm going to go a little bit outside the fantasy box here for an example and bring up 1984. This is my favorite copy. I love that eye. So creepy. In 1984, it's not that we have this really pleasant fantasy situation. It's a dystopian society that is extremely vivid. We know what the people wear. We know what they eat. We feel like we're eating it with them and we regret everything. We know that they don't really have weapons. We know that what their jobs are. We know that they have to do certain exercises in the morning. We know what music they listen to. So George Orwell just drops in these little descriptors everywhere. Basically, you can open this up, read the first baby paragraph there, and get a good sense of daily life in this world without even having to read any further. Okay, next thing that is a building block to culture is the concept of social groups. So that includes families, the family unit. Is it a nuclear family, or is it more like what Socrates envisioned in the Republic with everybody equally raising children? Is there a hierarchy of individuals? Are there different ethnicities in your culture? So one fantasy series, I'm actually in the middle of reading it right now, you can see, that I think, again, does this really well, is Victoria Aveyard, sorry, her Red Queen series. So I'm on the second one, Glass Sword, But central to the conflict in this fantasy series is the fact that there are very different social groups, not only economically, but also biologically. There are those with red blood and there are those with silver blood, and the silver-blooded people have special abilities that they're born with, and the red-blooded people are poorer and are more like us. They don't have any special abilities. They can't manipulate water or fire or things like that. And so this does a really nice job delineating social groups, both big and small. Okay, for the next one, arts and crafts. It's not just, when I think arts and crafts, I think of those little craft fairs or things like that, but arts and crafts, that is the art. So the art, the literature, the music, those things that people find beautiful in this culture. So I went, again, maybe not with the first thing that comes to mind. I could have used this also for just about every category, but I decided to use it for this one. And that is, of course, Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter. If you look behind me, I have my whole Harry Potter shelf. And that thing, oh, it's up there. And that thing that always is reflecting really terribly is a ticket to from platform 9 3/4 to Hogwarts, because I love this stuff. I'm an English nerd. That's why I called my channel English Nerd. In Harry Potter, you see not only descriptions of what Hogwarts looks like and daily life and all of that, but you also get music. You know about different musical groups that people like. You know what the art looks like and how it functions. In the case of Harry Potter, of course, the portraits, any painted or printed image can move around and even at times interact with you. J.K. Rowling pretty famously has come out with some Hogwarts school books. There's The Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which was turned into a book about the making of, or a movie about the making of that book, I suppose. There's Quidditch Through the Ages, and there's Beedle the Bard's stories, including the Deathly Hallows. So we get literature as well. We get descriptions of all kinds of books Hermione's always reading in this. So it's not maybe the first thing that would come to mind as far as arts and crafts. Again, Lord of the Rings is what comes to mind for me, pretty much always. But this is another good example of how to incorporate those elements into a very different fantasy culture. The next element is government. And so you need to consider, in your culture, is it a town? Is it a country? If so, does it have limited government? Does it have a totalitarian government, a dictatorship? Is it an oligarchy, or what kind of government are we dealing with? So for this one, I kind of cheated, and I grabbed Star Wars. I know that it's a movie, it's not really a book, but one of my students gave me this a couple years ago. I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but I thought it was really sweet because he knows I love Star Wars so much. Anyway, so I'm bringing this up because we know how the government structure is in the main books, and we know how it was and how it evolved from being Senate-based, where the different planets could send ambassadors or senators to meet in that big, weird, mushroom-shaped building and discuss boring things like trade agreements. Thank you, prequels, for nothing. But then how the Empire completely took over, killed those people who had any say in the Senate system, and established the Empire, which was later replaced by the First Order. So we get lots of details about the government system in Star Wars. That part is really fleshed out well. Okay, last element is economy. So what is the money system? Is it a trade system? Do you use coins or dollars or credits or what? What are the basic jobs that people can have? Are there imports, exports? Is it a capitalist society? Is it a communist society with a socialist kind of system as far as redistributing the money? So economy is the next one. For that one, I grabbed a sci-fi book, Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, because in this one, economy is a a decent driving factor of the revolution that takes place. The moon is trying to declare independence from the Earth. It's an odd sort of book. I'm not sure that I loved it. It was kind of strange, but they do have economy and what are the exports and what is the impact of the economy on the other planets. So if you're like me, you probably are listening to this and thinking, my gosh, that's still so much information. How can I possibly flesh that all out? So what we did in the session that I found really helpful was make just a little mind map, you know, with the bubbles going out like this. And there were 8 of them going around the name of my story or the culture that you're trying to build. If you can fill each of those 8 bubbles, each of those 8 topics with a decently substantial amount of information, doesn't need to be a novel in itself, but can you give some highlights of that element, then you're in good shape. You can move forward and you can feel confident that you have enough to make the culture feel real, because those are the elements that make our own cultures real. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it's helpful for your own writing. Thanks again to Darby Karchut for allowing me to use the notes from your session. I appreciated the information so much, and the fact that we are kindred spirits with the Lord of the Rings fandom was just an added bonus. So if you have not subscribed already, make sure that you do. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next Monday.